Hello and welcome to Somerville Neighborhood News. Today is July 15th and I'm Colby Smallzell.
And I'm Justin Page. Somerville Neighborhood News is a community service production of SCATV, put together by staff, interns, and your neighbors. We bring you the news every 2 weeks on SCATV, Channel 3, and on our website, somervilleneighborhoodnews.org, where you can read and watch the news.
That's right, we post the videos, so now you can watch and read the segments that interest you.
We hope you'll share our stories by sending a link or posting to Facebook.
Or just lean off your porch and tell your neighbor. Tonight, our reporters take you to a meeting about Union Square, the Independence Day celebrations, and we hear what Somervillians think about casinos.
We also have a look at childhood obesity, and we have part 2 of our series on the city's playing fields. We'll hear from 2 experts on the issue of artificial turf.
Last week, in a contentious meeting, the Somerville Board of Aldermen voted 7-4 to approve a campaign finance reform ordinance that would limit the amount of money developers could give to politicians. Mayor Joseph A. Curtatone was at the meeting. He vowed to veto the law, claiming it would, quote, make it harder for average Somerville residents to seek office, end quote. But in order to override the veto, the law's sponsor, Alderman Bill White, will need to muster one more vote to get 2/3 of the board. The next vote will be in September.
A Somerville teacher has been charged with statutory rape for having a relationship with a 13-year-old child at the East Somerville Community School. The charge came only a few months after a former teacher was charged with possessing child pornography.
Now here's a more positive story connected to our school system. Somerville kids care about human rights and justice. 5 Somerville elementary students were recently honored for creating the winning posters in the Fair Housing Poster Contest.
Check out the photos on the Housing Commission's Facebook page, facebook.com/Somerville Fair Housing Commission.
Here's another contest. SCATV is running a raffle called This Is My Square. Upload a photo of your favorite place in or near your favorite square. You can be in the photo if you want or not. Win a dinner for 2 at La Bresa and 2 Somerville Theater tickets. Learn more at bit.ly/mysquare.
Are we allowed to enter?
I don't see why not, but how can you pick just one spot?
I know, it's tough. There are at least 5 spots right here in Union Square.
Speaking of Union Square, a little patch of asphalt has been getting a lot of attention recently.
What?
Over on Washington Street, Somerville police have been cracking down on those drivers who breeze through crosswalks. Take a look at the video someone uploaded. It's already gotten over 236,000 views in only a week.
Oh, this truck's getting right here. I think he might, yeah. This truck's getting. Is he getting the truck? Oh, he's getting this guy. Yep, there he goes. What a great day. There you go.
According to CBS, they wrote $40,000 worth of tickets in just 2 weeks. All kinds of people have chimed in on YouTube to criticize the police.
For enforcing the law, there's also comments praising them.
To see the video, check the police Facebook page, facebook.com/Somerville Police. According to the police department, there are about 47 pedestrian accidents each year. Last month, a pedestrian was killed in a crosswalk in Davis Square.
Now let's go to our stories. First, here's an update on the Union Square redevelopment.
On July 9th, the Union Square Civic Advisory Committee and others met with the new master developer for Union Square, US2, the partnership of 2 Chicago firms, Magellan Development Group and Mesereau Financial. It was recently selected to develop 7 blocks in and around the square. Committee Chair Wig Zaymore announced that US2 will be setting up an office, developing a master plan, and meeting with the committee, residents, and business owners to get input and to develop a community benefits and needs agreement.
Everybody here, I think, or not, yeah, I think everybody here understands there's intended to be a community needs and benefits agreement. We'll want to make sure we reach out to everybody in the community with regard to their needs and their ideas for what should go into a benefits agreement. We're not going to have enough resources to meet every need, so we're going to have to be careful in what we choose and prioritize.
Greg Karcheski of US2 said the firm was counting on the involvement of the Civic Advisory Committee and of the community at large.
I want to say that we're honored and we're humbled and we're excited about the opportunity to work with all of you really to create, to really create your vision for Union Square. It's important to us, it was important to us during the competition that you are an active part of that dialogue, and it's going to continue to be important to us.
You have a very engaged and alert and educated community in Somerville, but we also need new ideas. So I would urge you not just to ask us what we want, but to offer some, some real innovation and leadership, because we're ready to learn more.
Attendees asked how the firm sees economic development for the square.
If you look out 10 or 15 years, the majority of the workforce is going to be made up of the millennial generation. So as we start to think about economic development and the role that that demographic is going to play in that economic development, it's important that when we plan Union Square as a development, we not only look at all the constituents that have interest, but also look through the prism of that group of individuals.
But there were concerns about those who live or do business in the square already.
I know you're focused on your specific properties, but what are the ripple effects if you're placing X amount of 40,000 square foot mixed-use units and the relative rents are this? What are the sort of particulars that happen with other rents in surrounding areas?
¿Qué ideas tiene usted para apoyar y sostener los negocios pequeños ya existentes y los residentes que ya vivimos en Union Square están aumentando las rentas tanto de los negocios como de las residencias?
We're absolutely focused on that, and I don't have any specific ideas to share right now. We actually did some research nationally about keeping local and independent retailers in place, but I think it's going to take a community effort, and I think we're going to need the community's help, and we're going to need the city's help to make sure that we preserve what's here.
The meeting was brief, but US2 made it clear they want the community involved at every step along the way in the redevelopment of Union Square. Meetings will begin soon. Reporting for Somerville Neighborhood News, I'm Jane Regan.
Next, our reporters followed up on the recreation field story from our last newscast. They wanted to know more about artificial turf. They talked to the professor who runs the website synturf.org. Guy Meerfendereski, a professor of international law at Brandeis, got interested in the issue when he was a youth soccer coach in Newton. He used to live here in Somerville, and he met up with the team at Dilboy Field.
The big problem in Somerville is not really artificial turf versus natural grass fields. The big problem is how much of the green space and the open space does this city is going to put under development. Yeah, you see this is the crumb rubber, and as you can also see, as I pick some up, also some of the green, the fiber from the turf has come up. Every time the ball hits the ground, a whole bunch of this stuff comes popping up, you see. Every field has about 40,000 ground tires that provides the stability for the blades, and over time, any given year, about 5 to 7% of that crumb migrates. And for example, if you go to the website's page called Crumb Rubber, you will get all that information about crumb rubber, how it comes about, what kind of toxins are in it, what kind of carcinogens are in it. My biggest concern is that because these fields create a faster pace of play, because it allows for players to cut and run, and because the traction is good, you can actually accelerate a lot faster. It doesn't take an MIT physics major to tell you that mass times acceleration gives you the force of that impact that then creates issues with concussion, issues with broken bones. And then you have the career-ending problems of playing on artificial turf fields, particularly among the young whose bodies are in a stage of development. knee injuries particularly, and the ones of the ligatures, and then and ankle injuries. This particular construction has a heat effect, in a sense that it absorbs a lot of heat, and then not only it makes it uncomfortable for people who play on it during hot days, but also it's a heat island. So the question for Somerville, it's one of the most densely populated cities in the not only in the Commonwealth but maybe in the country, as I remember. There needs to be a discussion, a conversation among all the stakeholders in the community whether we can afford to get rid of more green space and more common space and turn them into artificial turf fields with certain prohibitions about play, time, access, and so on and so forth. That's the big debate.
Next, our reporters tracked down a professor of public health who has looked at artificial turf.
So when we think about the two options, there are risks and benefits on both sides. Neither one is risk-free. And ultimately, the decision is balancing a number of risks with the cost of putting in the field, maintaining the field, and having the field available as frequently as people need in order to have enough physical activity to decrease sort of this, or to at least begin to combat our inactivity. So when we think about risks associated with artificial turf, there are really just a few of them. One is the heat that's generated when the turf is out in the sun. The turf brings with it these volatile organics that will off-gas in the hot weather. Temperature is hotter, and there is a calculated lifetime excess cancer risk. Another issue, which is what I think we see most often in the public, in the literature or in the press, in the popular press, is the issue of the contaminants that are part of the sort of the particles that make up this turf. And those are in part recycled tires. And so we know that we can measure some heavy metals present in those, in that turf. Now, let's go to the other side, which is the natural turf, the grass. What are the risks associated with the grass? Those risks include the use of pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers that have to be used if the field is going to be maintained as a green turf field. We know what some of the risks are associated with many of those herbicides and pesticides. Those are looking at neurological effects in young kids, developmental effects, and for some of them, carcinogenic effects as well. Many towns have struggled with this because on the one hand, we want our kids and adults to be outside playing. We also don't want to use the pesticides, but we also want to make sure that what we put in doesn't have unintended consequences.
Professor Heiger Bernays did note that certain studies have shown the levels of risk associated with artificial turf are below what are considered benchmark levels. To learn more, check out a study that the state of Connecticut did at bit.ly/CT study.
Next, we've got a report from the city's 4th of July celebrations.
On July 3rd, the city of Somerville got together at Trump Field for the 4th of July celebration. Drawing several thousand people each year, the event kicks off with 3 hours of musical performances.
I actually like the music. I think that's been lost a little in recent years. The fireworks are great, but over the years, the Boston Pops used to be very famous for having a lot of great classical music and pop music. I think we've kind of lost that. Nice to have the Navy Band here in Somerville because the Navy Band does play a really good quality music.
But Independence Day is about more than just music.
It means partly a celebration, but those of us who have had members of our family who are in the service, both my mother, who was an officer in the Coast Guard, and my father was in the Navy, World War II generation. And though I didn't have the opportunity to serve, the sense of respect for service is, I think, an important one, sometimes lost a little bit.
For kids, the event is about being happy and having fun.
Freedom, independence, you know, loving this country, being able to do what we want, hang out. What's your favorite?
And surprises.
Surprises? What kind of surprises?
Boo-boo.
Reporting for Somerville Neighborhood News, I'm Chu Qingzhao.
Now let's see what's in this week's Somerville Journal.
Hello, this week in the Journal we'll have the latest on the pay-to-play initiative that the Aldermen are working on. We'll have a preview of Artbeat, and we'll take a look at a new proposed affordable housing development at the Old American Legion on Glen Street. You can always find us at wickedlocal.com/Somerville. You can follow us on Twitter at VilleJournal, and you can get in touch with me at 617-629-3385 or datkinson@wickedlocal.com.
Somerville's youth are part of a nationwide obesity crisis. A 2010 study said half of the kids here are either obese or overweight. Sharon Johnson took a look at the issue. She started at the Mystic Learning Center.
My favorite food is smoothies.
Is what?
Smoothies.
What kind of smoothies do you like?
Mango and...
10-year-old Jessie knows what she likes. Smoothies, going to the beach, and hanging out with family and friends. What she doesn't know is she's being targeted.
Hey there.
Hi, Ronald.
Bad day, huh?
I'll say.
Well, could be worse.
Fast food restaurants are spending more and more on ads that target young people. The new focus? Spanish-speaking children.
Desata la diversión de la nueva película de DreamWorks, Shrek the Third.
Dr. Meisinger at Union Square Family Health is worried.
Children absorb things all the way to the core of their being and do not have the ability to think critically about things until about age 12. Advertising is extraordinarily effective in that age group. So we know from our experience in Somerville through Shape Up Somerville that actually the incidence of obesity is much higher in families who have recently immigrated to the United States. And that's not surprising because families who have recently changed countries and have children have much less money and much less opportunities than families who are well established here and have higher incomes.
A 2008 study found that at least 25% of Latino males ages 6 through 19 were obese. Since 1980, prevalence of obesity among youth overall has tripled. Dr. Meisinger's colleague says fast food marketing is part of the problem.
The way that we eat is highly influenced by the fast food industry and by big food in general. So people actually think often that they're eating good things, but in reality, they're highly processed foods that aren't healthy for the body.
It's not surprising that children and adults crave fast food. Companies utilize athletes, celebrities, and pop culture to promote products with high sugar, salt, and fat content.
Highly processed food makes people eat without even thinking about it. The more salt something has or the more sugar something has, we almost eat subconsciously, which obviously is unhealthy.
There are programs in Somerville trying to get kids to eat healthy, like at the Mystic Learning Center.
So what would you guys have if you could have any breakfast?
Pancakes and cereal and strawberry and watermelon. Watermelon and mango.
I get the impression that a lot of these kids don't get fresh produce on the regular.
So this is a pretty good opportunity for them to get it every single day, and it's amazing because they eat it all the time. They're very non-judgmental about food. They're not picky eaters, which I think is great.
There you go, honey. You want a pair? Get your milk over here. Ready? Which one? Your buffalo? Right now we're making the garden salad out of the mandarin oranges and lettuce that they actually grew in the garden.
And the carrot hasn't grown in quite. They're getting there. They're getting there. We got to leave them in for a little while longer though.
And then they're having some veggie patch buffalo chicken. And this one veggie patch is spinach and chickpeas. So not too many kids eat those kind of things in an after-school program.
I think there's a crisis of obesity and of children being overweight. I think that the factors behind it are pretty complex. When you're working till 6 o'clock, you don't necessarily have time to spend an hour preparing a nutritious dinner. Additionally, families, when there are two parents who are working long hours, they don't necessarily have the time to get their kids involved in a lot of activities. So those kids, maybe when they're 12, 13, they don't have the money to go play a sport. They might not have the money to do an after-school program. They're much more likely to be in front of a TV and they're not as active.
The professionals we talked to urged families to keep their kids away from fast food and junk food like these. Instead, they should try to prepare and eat more fresh food, take walks, and spend more time away from TV and other screens. For Somerville Neighborhood News, I'm Sharon Johnson.
For more information, check out the city's Shape Up Somerville website, somervillema.gov/departments/health/SUS.
Next, our reporters hit the streets to ask people their opinions on casinos. A recent poll said 56% of state residents have no problem with adding more casinos. We wanted to find out what Somervillians thought.
What are your thoughts on casinos potentially coming into the Boston area?
I'm against them, actually. I'm against them because I have a friend who lives in Detroit, and she says that Detroit has 4 major casinos, and look at the condition that Detroit is in. I think people are hoping that it'll have a good economic impact, but given what's happened in Detroit, I don't think it's going to happen here.
I guess a casino wouldn't be so bad. I can definitely see the upsides, which would be helping out the economy. I guess the downsides might be that it would draw like a really particular kind of crowd. I don't know, do you agree?
Yeah, no, that's totally true. I also think that it will just have a really interesting effect on the social climate because a lot of the places people go recreationally here are like bars or for shows. So I think it will kind of bring a lot of like sassy dads in, maybe a lot of like people wanting to drink and gamble, and that's an odd thing to throw into such a college-y and like then older folk community of people, I suppose.
So in 2011, Governor Deval Patrick signed the Expanding Gaming Act into law. In November, this will come up again. Will you guys support that, or will you try and repeal it by your voting?
I vote yes, just because a spicy twist is never really a terrible thing. Yeah, like, let's just mix it up a little bit.
I'm opposed to it. I mean, I think it's a terrible thing that government has to depend on things like casinos for revenue. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, gambling's a terrible problem for people. Casinos don't tend to bring the best class of people into a neighborhood. If you need revenue as a government, then you need to man up and raise taxes.
While I would love more jobs, I understand like Revere's concerns. My best friend's parents live in Revere, and I know they have a lot of concerns about kind of traffic coming in and out, and to them it was, you know, the city they grew up in, the town that they raised their kids in, and I think they're concerned about so much traffic in and out. But I would also love for there to be more jobs in the area. So I guess I'm torn.
Basically, as soon as a casino comes into a specific community, like crime rates go up extremely. Like when it comes to the businesses, like local businesses, they run dry. So it's like ultimately, the only people that benefit from it are obviously the people who invested the time to build it. And you're most likely not going to get a job when it comes to the casino because there's the statistics on it are really against you. They paint it like it's a good picture, but it's not really a good picture for the community.
I mean, I don't see why it's a bad thing. It'd be beneficial for the town. The amount of money they would get would be able to fund back into this town and help the economy grow.
but I think it depends where it's placed because it might disrupt the community around it.
And it seems sort of a sad comment on the times that the only way government can hope to balance the books is to basically legalize things like gambling.
Hey Justin, did you know that there's a museum of bad art here in Somerville?
Well, what's bad art?
I don't really know, but one man's trash is another man's treasure, right?
I guess that's what the museum people think. It was founded in 2008 and now has 3 branches, the main branch being in the basement of the Somerville Theater.
This is the Museum of Bad Art, and it's the only museum in the world that collects and exhibits and celebrates art that would never make it in a traditional museum.
Ladies and gentlemen, Swamet's secret.
It started with a friend finding a piece of art in the trash. He was going to throw out the art and sell the frame. It was in a beautiful frame. And another friend said, "You can't throw that out. That's so bad it's good, and I want to hang it in my house." Artists loved what we were doing. And the reason is that an artist wants to communicate something and wants an audience for their work, and we're providing that audience for them.
Like pornography, we say we know it when we see it.
These are paintings that a kind of painting and kind of art that nobody values. They throw them out, they burn them, they put them in the trash.
An artist came in and saw one of the paintings and started freaking out. He came to my coworker and said that it was a painting that he had painted 30 years ago when he was in college, and he had actually just thrown it away because he thought it was so bad.
It should be art that's too bad to be ignored. You know, the kind of thing that you just have to keep looking at and go back to. Most of our criteria is exactly the same as a fine art museum. We don't want kitsch, we don't want paintings on velvet or paint by numbers or things like that. We don't want student art. We never want art students to feel like we're standing over their shoulder waiting for them to do something wrong. And we don't want boring. If something is not done well and it's just boring, who cares? What we look for is a painting that you look at and you know something went wrong.
Poor technique can be interesting if the poor technique results in a compelling image.
Pauline resting, and the reason we love this is a piece where it appears that the person who painted this has never seen a naked human body, but still went ahead and tried to paint it with a dislocated hip and breasts that are suspended from the shoulders and a hint of a mustache. It's just a wonderful piece. The first time we set up the Museum of Bad Art, it was in the basement of another movie theater, and we had Pauline on the wall. After a few days, the movie theater manager called us and said, "Get that nude out of here." He was having school groups come in, and the 11 and 12-year-old boys kept running to the men's room because they had to go through the gallery to get there, and they couldn't take their eyes off this painting. So we are careful where we hang it.
Oh, happy days.
That's bad.
Yeah, see?
Yeah. I don't think that's worth more than $2.
Oh, right. Beautiful.
At the start, say they were mostly from the Boston area, yard sales, thrift stores. As soon as we got started back in by 1996 or 97, people started sending us art literally from all over the world. We got it from a thrift store. People send a lot of things that we don't consider art. They'll send these paintings on velvet, the Velvet Elvis, and or they'll send paintings that they bought at hotel sales. That's a factory product, you know. Somewhere there are people who are being told, put more blue in it, and turning it out.
If you want to know more, check out the website, museumofbadart.org.
That's all for now. Thanks for joining, and we'll be back on July 29th.
But don't tune in just once every 2 weeks. Check us out online at somervilleneighborhoodnews.org or go to our Facebook page and share your favorite segment.
Or send us a tweet at SCATV SNN. We welcome you to get involved with Somerville Neighborhood News.
What's happening on your block? Who's your neighborhood hero? What issues aren't being covered?
Become a reporter or just send us your ideas. Call us at 617-628-8826 or write to news@scatvsomerville.org. I'm Colby Smallzell.
And I'm Justin Page. See you around the neighborhood.